High above the blue curve of Earth, a silent ship floated among the stars. Invisible to human eyes, the vessel's dark metal blended with space itself. Inside, a lone figure watched the planet below through glowing lenses. His name was Agent Zeliar, a spy from the Valerian Dominion, an empire that stretched across dozens of worlds. For months, Zeliar had observed Earth. His mission was clear: study the humans, record their behavior, find their weaknesses, prepare the invasion. He had done this on other planets before. It was simple work: watch, report, move on. But this assignment felt different. Through his ship's sensors, he scanned the surface of the planet. Every hour, countless human signals filled the air: voices, images, music, chaos. He listened to news reports, wars, and protests. He saw humans fighting each other, shouting in anger, and destroying their own land. To Zeliar it looked like madness. "They are emotional, unstable," he said into his recorder. "They argue, they destroy, and they fear everything. They are easy to manipulate." He paused and adjusted the view to show a war zone. Cities burning, tanks rolling, people running. "Yes," he said quietly. "Weak. Very weak." He was certain the Dominion would crush them in days. But that certainty began to crumble when one strange video caught his attention. It was a human news broadcast showing soldiers trapped in a collapsing building after an explosion. Smoke, dust, and fire filled the air. The camera shook. Someone was screaming. Zeliar leaned closer. Through the smoke, a group of rescue workers appeared, humans in burned uniforms, coughing, bleeding, but running toward the flames. Not away. They carried stretchers, dragged the wounded, and refused to stop even as parts of the building fell around them. One man pushed another out of the way just before a wall came down. Zeliar froze the image. "Why?" he whispered. "Why would anyone risk their life for a stranger?" On his world, such a thing was unthinkable. The Dominion taught obedience, logic, and self-preservation. Helping another without gain was considered foolish, weakness. But here were humans, fragile, mortal beings, running into death for people they did not even know. He rewound the footage and watched again. Then again. Something deep inside him, a part he didn't know existed, stirred. "This behavior, it does not make sense," he said into his log. "They should have fled. Instead they stayed." He tried to ignore it. But he couldn't stop thinking about the faces of those humans, their fear, their courage, their will to keep moving. For the first time, Zeliar felt something that was not in his programming. Curiosity. Maybe even admiration. He opened new channels, searching for more examples. He saw doctors treating patients during plagues. He saw parents shielding children during disasters. He saw firefighters walking into burning forests. Every act defied his logic. "They are illogical," he muttered. "But they survive. Even when they should not." The longer he watched, the more questions filled his mind. Perhaps humanity wasn't as weak as the Dominion believed. Perhaps there was something in them, something invisible, that gave them strength. For the first time in his career, Zeliar hesitated to send his report. He deleted half his recordings and started again, trying to explain what he had seen. But there were no words in his language for bravery, hope, or sacrifice. Hours passed. Earth rotated below him, half in sunlight, half in night. From above, it looked peaceful, a blue world glowing softly against the blackness of space. But Zeliar knew better. He had seen their wars. He had seen their fire. Yet still, humanity endured. That night, as he watched the oceans shimmer under moonlight, a soft tone echoed through his cabin. It was a priority message from his commander. He stood at attention and pressed the holographic console. The image of Overlord Karen appeared, tall, scaled, with eyes like burning coals. "Agent Zeliar," the commander said coldly, "we have received enough data. Prepare your final report. The invasion begins soon." The words hit like a shockwave. "Understood, Commander," Zeliar replied, but his voice was lower than usual. The hologram vanished, leaving silence. Only the hum of the ship remained. Zeliar turned to the planet again. He zoomed in, on a hospital still lit despite the blackout, where nurses moved tirelessly. On a soldier hugging his family before leaving for duty. On a group of volunteers handing out food after a disaster. Each scene burned into his mind. He tried to convince himself this was just data. Just another species. Just another mission. But his chest felt heavy. His claws trembled slightly as he shut off the monitor. He could almost hear the humans' voices echoing in his head. "We don't leave anyone behind." For the first time in his life, Agent Zeliar hesitated to follow orders. He closed his eyes and whispered into the darkness. Perhaps they are not weak. Outside, the stars shone silently. The planet spun below, unaware that an alien spy above them was about to make a choice that could change the course of two civilizations. Because when the Dominion came for war, Zelair no longer knew which side he would stand on. The night was calm above Earth, but deep inside the silent Volarian ship, Agent Zelair was no longer calm at all. He had lied to his commanders. He had refused their orders. And now, a Dominion battleship was on its way. He stood before the viewing window. The blue planet glowed beneath him, beautiful and fragile. For weeks he had watched humans through screens, distant, untouchable. But distance no longer felt right. He needed to see them to feel what made them strong. He opened a hidden compartment and pulled out a small device, a human disguise field. It would bend light around him, changing his form. A dangerous act. If the Dominion found out, he'd be marked a traitor. Still, he whispered, "If I am to protect them, I must understand them." And with that, he descended toward Earth. The disguise shimmered around him as he landed in a quiet forest just outside a human city. Cool air touched his skin for the first time. Felt strange, soft, alive. The sounds were everywhere. Insects, leaves, distant voices. He looked down at himself. His skin appeared human now, pale, smooth, 2 eyes instead of 4. The transformation worked. He stepped onto a dirt path and followed the sound of civilization. Within an hour, lights appeared ahead. Streets, cars, people. Everything was moving, noisy, emotional. Humans shouted, laughed, argued. It was chaos, and yet, every action carried life. He wandered the streets, observing faces. Every expression seemed full of meaning. A woman smiled as she helped an old man cross the road. A child laughed while chasing a ball. 2 men argued but shook hands after. To Zelair it was all so irrational. But it warmed something inside him. He spent the next few days blending in. He learned their language by listening to broadcasts. He ate their food, odd but pleasant. And slowly he began to understand what his reports could never capture. Emotion. One evening, as rain poured across the city, Zelair heard a faint cry in the distance. He turned a corner and saw a small human child sitting alone near a broken streetlight. The child's clothes were soaked and tears mixed with rain. Without thinking, Zelair approached. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. The boy looked up, frightened but didn't run. I can't find my mom," the child said between sobs. Zelair froze. On his world, emotion was weakness. Fear was punished. But here was a creature, small, helpless, and his heart reacted before logic could. He knelt, putting a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. "We'll find her," he said, unsure why he was saying it. They walked through the streets together, Zelair scanning faces, calling out. The boy's tiny hand gripped his. It was warm. Alive. For a strange reason, that touch calmed him. Finally, they found the mother, running through the rain, calling her son's name. She fell to her knees and hugged the boy tightly, crying and thanking Zelair again and again. He just stood there, unable to speak. Something inside him shifted, something he could not describe. It wasn't duty. It wasn't logic. It was feeling. "Thank you," the mother said. "You're a good man. A good man." The words echoed in his mind long after they left. That night, Zelair sat on a bench overlooking the city lights. His disguise flickered faintly as rain continued to fall. He whispered to himself, "Good man." He had never been called that before. On his world, one was either useful or not. But here, goodness came from action, from caring. He looked down at his trembling hands and finally understood what gave humans their strength. It was not power or weapons. It was the simple will to help, even when it made no sense. But peace never lasts. As he returned to the forest to reach his ship, a sound echoed in the sky, a high-pitched hum. Zelair's blood ran cold. He looked up. A small Volarian drone was descending, scanning the area with red light. The Dominion had found him. He ran through the trees, activating his cloak, but the drone followed. He jumped behind a rock and fired his handheld jammer. Sparks exploded as the drone fell, crashing into the dirt. Smoke rose. Zelair approached carefully. The machine flickered, still transmitting a weak signal. On the cracked screen, his commander's face appeared, Overlord Karen. "Agent Zelair," the voice growled. "You have disobeyed direct orders. Your signal shows on Earth's surface. Explain yourself." Zelair stayed silent. "You were to prepare the invasion," the commander roared. "Why are you among them?" Rain fell harder, hitting the metal wreck. Zelair finally answered, voice steady. "To understand them. And now I do." "You are corrupted," the commander spat. Return at once or be destroyed. Zelair crushed the drone's core with one swift motion. The light died. Silence returned. He looked up at the clouds. Lightning flashed across the sky, bright and wild. He knew what that signal meant. The Dominion would come. They would not forgive betrayal. He turned toward the city lights again. Somewhere out there, the child and his mother were safe, unaware of the storm approaching from the stars. He placed a hand on his chest. His heart, once cold and precise, now beat with purpose. If they come, he whispered, I will stand with the humans. His disguise shimmered as he walked into the rain, vanishing into the night. Above the clouds, distant sensors locked onto Earth. A fleet was moving, fast, unstoppable, ready to conquer. And in the middle of it all, one alien spy was about to fight for the very world he was sent to destroy. And Hook. In orbit, the Dominion commander opened a private channel. Deploy the assault team, he ordered. Find Zelair. Alive if possible. Dead if necessary. The hunt had begun. The night sky over Earth was calm, but Zelair knew it was a lie. High above the clouds, Dominion warships were moving into position. Thousands of ships, silent, invisible, drifted closer with every passing hour. In his hidden mountain base, Zelair worked quickly. He was trying to warn humanity before the fleet arrived. His fingers moved over the console, sending encoded signals through Earth satellites. Human command, if you can hear this, your world is in danger, he said softly. The Volarian Dominion is coming. Their fleet will reach your orbit in 3 days. Static filled the screen. The human system struggled to decode alien data. Then, a voice answered. This is United Earth Defense Network. Identify yourself. Zelair hesitated. For the first time he heard them speak back to him directly. He took a deep breath. I was a spy. My name is Zelair. I once worked for the Dominion. Now I stand with you. Silence followed. Then another voice came on, a calm, steady tone. If what you're saying is true, we'll need proof. Zelair nodded. You will have it, but we are out of time. He began uploading Dominion encryption codes, everything he'd stolen from his masters. But before the transfer could finish, alarms screamed through his ship. Red lights flashed. His radar detected multiple life forms outside. No, he whispered. They found me. The ground shook. Bright blue plasma tore through the rocks above. Dominion troops descended from the sky, heavily armored, weapons drawn. Zelair grabbed his plasma pistol, but there were too many. Explosions filled the cave as smoke and debris fell around him. He fired, hitting one then another. But as he reached for the last control pad, something struck him hard from behind. The world went dark. When he woke, Zelair was surrounded by cold metal walls. The air smelled of sterilized steel. He was back on a Dominion battleship. His wrists were bound with energy cuffs. His head throbbed from the blast. In front of him stood Overlord Karen, eyes burning like fire. You betrayed us, Karen said quietly. All this, for them? Zelair met his gaze. They are worth more than the Dominion ever will be. Karen's voice turned to a snarl. You gave humans Dominion encryption. Do you realize what you've done? You've armed primitives with power they do not deserve. They deserve freedom, Zelair said. Karen backhanded him across the face. You are no longer one of us. You will die slowly. He turned to his guards. Prepare the execution chamber. Make sure the humans can see what happens to traitors. Far below, on Earth, the United Earth Defense Command finally cracked the transmission Zelair sent before capture. His final message played across the war room. If you are hearing this, the Dominion fleet is coming. I am already gone. But know this, they fear you. They do not understand your courage. Do not surrender. Fight. For a long moment, no one spoke. General Reeves, head of Earth's defense, clenched his jaw. He warned us. He gave us everything he had. A technician looked up from her console. Sir. His signal stopped near the upper atmosphere. We think he's been taken aboard a Dominion ship. Reeves turned to the tactical display, a massive red cluster moving toward Earth. Then we bring him back. And we show the galaxy what happens when you mess with humanity. Inside the Dominion vessel, Zelair hung in restraints, the hum of the engines surrounding him. He could see the faint blue light of Earth through the viewport, a world so close yet beyond his reach. Karen's voice echoed from the speakers. When the fleet fires, your human friends will burn. Their oceans will boil. Their cities will be dust. Zelair closed his eyes. You've made the same mistake I did, he said. You think fear wins wars. Karen laughed. And what wins then? Well, kindness. Zeliar smiled weakly. Sometimes yes. The Overlord frowned. Pathetic. He turned away, but before he could issue the firing command, alarms blared through the bridge. Overlord. Multiple human ships incoming. Karen's eyes widened. Impossible. They cannot. Before he could finish, the main view screen filled with light. Dozens of human warships appeared, sleek, angular, nothing like the Dominion's design. Their hulls shimmered with plasma shields, and across their sides glowed bold white letters. US Resolution, US Valkyrie, US Odyssey. Karen hissed. They're primitive. How are they here already? On Earth's flagship, General Reeves stood tall. We received your message, Zeliar, he said under his breath. Now we answer. All ships, fire. The stars erupted in light. Human missiles screamed through space, cutting through the Dominion formation. The shock waves rippled across the void. Inside the Dominion ship, Zeliar felt the walls shudder. He pulled at his restraints, until a sudden blast ripped open the side of his cell. A figure stepped through the smoke. A human in an armored exosuit. You Zeliar? The soldier asked through his helmet. Zeliar blinked in disbelief. You came, for me? The soldier grinned. You warned us. We don't leave our own behind. He cut Zeliar free and handed him a weapon. Let's finish this. As they fought their way through the corridors, Zeliar caught one last glimpse of Earth through the viewport, still shining, still alive. The soldier turned to him. Your people are coming after us, right? Zeliar nodded. They will never stop. The human smiled faintly. Then they'll learn what happens when you wake up a death world. And Hook. On the Dominion flagship, Overlord Karen stared at the burning wrecks of his fleet. So be it, he growled. If the spy wants to stand with humans, he'll die with them. He turned to his fleet officers. Prepare the Armageddon Protocol. If we cannot conquer Earth, we will erase it. In the silence of space, thousands of Dominion ships began charging their planet-killer cannons, while a single human fleet stood between them and annihilation. The storm over Earth had passed, but inside Agent Zeliar the storm had only begun. He hid deep in the mountains, his ship buried under stone and snow. Every day he watched the sky, knowing the Valerian Dominion would come for him. He had broken every rule, lied in every report, and worst of all, he had begun to care for humans. Still, part of him hoped the Dominion would forget. Empires rarely did. One cold evening, as lightning flashed behind the clouds, his console came alive. Incoming transmission. Dominion High Command. The screen glowed red. Overlord Karen's face appeared, his scaled skin glinting under the harsh light. Agent Zeliar, the voice boomed. Your location is confirmed. You will follow new orders immediately. Zeliar stood silent. Yes, Commander, he said quietly. You will travel to the human communication grid, Karen continued. Place this signal beacon at their orbital network. When activated, it will disable their defenses. The invasion fleet arrives in 2 rotations. A small device materialized in the ship's transporter, cold, metallic, deadly. Zeliar stared at it. One signal and the humans would be blind when the fleet came. Understood. Karen asked. For a long moment, Zeliar didn't speak. His mind raced with memories, the child he'd helped, the mother's tears, the firemen running into flames. He finally answered, Understood, Commander. But his voice lacked the steel of obedience. Do not fail us again, Karen warned. The Dominion watches everything. The screen went dark. Zeliar sat alone, staring at the beacon. It pulsed softly like a beating heart. He could destroy it now, but doing so would mark his ship as rogue. The Dominion would send hunters, maybe even burn Earth to find him. If he used it, humanity would fall. Either choice meant death. He closed his eyes. On his world, decisions were easy, follow orders. But now, he understood what humans felt when they chose between fear and courage. He whispered, If they call this bravery, then I must learn it. That night, Zeliar disguised himself again and left his ship. He walked through the city streets, the same place where he had once saved the child. The lights, the sounds, the people, all of it felt alive. He saw humans helping each other, arguing, laughing, living. Every heartbeat reminded him why he could not betray them. He stopped near a small cafe where humans gathered for warmth and stories. Through the window he watched them share food with strangers. No reward, no command, just kindness. He smiled faintly. They would never survive in the Dominion, he thought. And yet, they have survived everything. Suddenly, a voice came from behind him. You shouldn't be here. Zeliar turned. A tall figure stood in the alley, metal armor glinting under the rain. A Valerian hunter. The creature's eyes glowed red. Agent Zeliar, by order of the Dominion, you are under arrest for treason. Zeliar's pulse quickened. The hunter raised a plasma weapon. You will return with me. Zeliar slowly reached into his coat, pretending to obey, but instead pulled out his jammer. A sharp flash of blue light burst through the alley. The hunter staggered, sensors failing. Zeliar ran. The streets filled with human noise, cars, sirens, rain, but behind it all, he could hear the heavy metallic steps of his pursuer. He turned corners, leaped over barriers and ducked into an underground subway tunnel. The hunter followed, scanning the dark. You cannot hide from the Dominion, it growled. Zeliar reached the far wall, pressed a hidden button on his wrist device, and detonated a pulse grenade. The tunnel filled with light. The hunter screamed as circuits fried and armor cracked. When silence returned, Zeliar stood over the wreckage, chest heaving. He looked down at the fallen warrior. I served the Dominion once, he said. But not anymore. He took the weapon, destroyed the hunter's tracking beacon, and disappeared into the night. Back at his mountain base, Zeliar placed the Dominion beacon on his table. He stared at it for a long time, rain dripping from his hair. Then slowly he lifted it, walked outside and threw it into the raging waterfall nearby. The device sparked, hissed, and vanished beneath the torrent. It was done. For a moment, peace filled the air. But he knew peace wouldn't last. The Dominion would notice. They would come with full force now, not only for Earth but for him. He opened a new recording file on his console. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke. Personal log, Agent Zella. Former Agent Zeliar. I cannot obey. Humanity is not weak. They are strong because they care. They fight for one another, not for power. If that is weakness, then I choose weakness. He ended the recording and looked up at the stars. Far above, the Dominion fleet moved closer, hundreds of warships cutting through space like blades. The invasion was already set in motion. He clenched his fists. They will come, he whispered. And when they do, I will stand with Earth. And Hook. On the bridge of the leading Dominion battleship, Overlord Karen watched the latest feed. The signal beacon had gone offline. He destroyed it, Karen hissed. He dares to side with them. He turned to his officers. Prepare the fleet. If Zeliar stands with the humans, then we will crush them both. Outside, stars flickered as the great armada turned toward the blue world called Earth. And below, one alien stood ready to defy an empire. The void above Earth burned with light. Dominion warships filled the sky like a black storm. Their massive hulls stretched across orbit, each carrying enough firepower to destroy a continent. And in front of them, just a few dozen Terran ships. Small, scarred, outnumbered, but they didn't run. On the bridge of the UES Resolution, General Reeves stood calm, eyes fixed on the tactical display. Each human ship glowed faintly blue, shields at maximum, weapons armed. We hold here, Reeves said. If they want Earth, they'll have to go through us. Across the galaxy, no one would have believed it. Humans standing against the Valerian Dominion, the oldest and cruelest empire known. But this was no longer about survival. It was about belief. And it began with one alien spy who chose to believe in them. Inside the hangar, Zeliar sat on a repair bench, watching engineers race to reload missiles. His once dark armor was now patched with Terran symbols, blue, white, and red markings on his chest. A young human pilot passed him a small communicator. Command wants you on the bridge, Zeliar. He nodded, following the soldier through the narrow corridors. Every human he passed gave him a small nod, some even saluted. He had never known respect like this among his own kind. When he stepped onto the bridge, General Reeves turned to him. You fought your people before? I studied them, Zeliar said quietly. But never like this. Reeves looked at him. Then let's make history together. Far beyond them, the Dominion fleet shifted formation. At the center, the Overlord's flagship, Tyrannis, powered up a weapon the size of a mountain, its core glowing with unstable plasma. Overlord Karen's voice echoed through the comms, broadcast across both fleets. This is your only warning, humans. Surrender your world and the traitor, or watch your planet burn. Reeves smiled grimly. Open channel. The comm officer nodded. Channel open, sir. Reeves stepped forward. You came to the wrong planet, Karen. We don't surrender. We resist. Always. He gestured toward Zeliar. And the spy you hate so much? He's the reason you're afraid. Karen's eyes flared. Then you will all die together. The battle began. From orbit, the sky lit up as the Dominion unleashed waves of plasma fire. Human ships darted between beams, firing railguns and kinetic missiles. The explosions flashed like sunrise against the black void. Inside the Resolution, alarms blared. Shield integrity down to 68%. Enemy cruiser closing in from Sector 7. Reeves gripped the command rail. Target their power cores. Focus fire. The Resolution's railguns roared, sending molten slugs through the enemy's hull. The Dominion cruiser exploded, scattering debris across the stars. Zelair watched in awe. The Dominion had technology. But humans, they had will. He remembered something he'd once said to Karen. You think fear wins wars. Now, watching humans fight against 1,000 ships, he finally understood the truth. It wasn't fear that made them strong. It was bravery in the face of certain death. Down below, on Earth's surface, people stood outside their homes, watching streaks of light cross the sky. Cities dimmed their lights to conserve power for orbital defenses. Soldiers loaded planetary cannons hidden beneath the ice caps. Every screen on Earth displayed the same message. Hold the line. From Antarctica to Tokyo, from New York to Karachi, people whispered the same words. Hold the line. On the Resolution, an explosion threw Zelair across the deck. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Main reactor hit, a technician shouted. We're losing power. Reeves looked at him. Zelair, if you've got any Dominion codes left, now's the time to use them. Zelair's mind raced. Then he remembered, a backdoor command system hidden deep in Dominion ships. A system only spies like him knew. He rushed to the console, entering alien symbols across the holographic panel. If I can trigger their safety protocol, I can overload their reactors. Do it. The ship shook violently. Dominion dreadnoughts surrounded them, charging their main cannons. One beam struck the Resolution, cutting through its armor. The bridge filled with smoke. Zelair hit the final command key. Done. Across the battlefield, several Dominion ships suddenly froze. Their lights flickered, then turned red. They're overloading, a human officer shouted. One after another, the Dominion warships exploded in a chain reaction, blindingly bright against the void. But the victory came at a cost. The Resolution's engines failed. They were drifting toward the burning wreckage. We're losing altitude. Reeves turned to Zelair. We need to take out the flagship. Can you get us close? Zelair nodded grimly. If you trust me. I do. They transferred the last bit of engine power to maneuvering thrusters. The damaged Resolution turned slowly toward the Tyrannies. On Karen's bridge, alarms blared. The human ship is heading straight for us, Overlord. Let them come, Karen said. They will die with their planet. But he didn't know, Zelair had activated one last command. The Resolution's reactor began to overload. You'll never touch Earth, Zelair whispered. Not while I still breathe. He pressed his palm to the final sequence. Reeves looked at him. You don't have to. Yes, Zelair said softly. I do. For both our worlds. The Resolution rammed into the Tyrannies. A blinding explosion filled space, tearing through the Dominion fleet. The shockwave reached even the upper atmosphere, lighting the sky above Earth like a second sun. Every radar on Earth went silent. Then, cheers erupted across the world. The Dominion fleet was gone. Hours later, in the quiet orbit above Earth, a single escape pod floated through debris. Inside, battered and bloodied, Zelair opened his eyes. The stars were peaceful again. He looked toward the blue world below and smiled weakly. They did it, they held the line. He closed his eyes as the pod entered Earth's atmosphere, glowing bright as it fell, a single spark across the dawn sky. Epilogue hook. Weeks later, humans found the wreckage in the ocean. Among the remains, they discovered a Dominion insignia, crossed out with the Terran flag painted over it. And engraved beneath it were words scratched in alien letters. He came as a spy. He died as one of us. The Earth rotated quietly below, blue and bright against the cold black of space. From his hidden ship, Agent Zelair sat in silence, watching the world he was ordered to betray. His commander's words still echoed in his mind. Prepare your final report. The invasion begins soon. For the first time, Zelair could not obey. He stared at the blinking lights on his console. Thousands of human transmissions flooded the screens. News, songs, cries, laughter, war. It was chaos. Yet within that chaos, he saw something that no Dominion world had ever known. Courage. He began a deeper study, focusing on the places where fear should have broken humanity, but didn't. On one screen, a great storm tore through a human city. Buildings collapsed, streets vanished underwater, and lightning split the sky. The humans should have fled. Instead, they worked together, men and women forming human chains, pulling strangers from the floods. No logic, Zelair whispered. No order. Only will. He saw a woman carry a crying child on her back through raging water. He saw people risking their lives for others who could not help them in return. He replayed the footage again and again. Something about it shook him. On another screen, a battlefield. Smoke. Mud. The sound of artillery. Human soldiers were trapped, surrounded by an enemy force. Their leader's voice shouted through the radio. Hold the line. Reinforcements are coming. But there were no reinforcements. They knew it. Still, they didn't run. They fought, not for glory but to give others time to escape. When the last explosion came, Zelair saw the soldiers standing together, firing until the end. He felt his throat tighten, a strange reaction for a Valerian. His kind didn't have emotions like sorrow or respect. But now he did. They fight even when hope is gone, he recorded softly. They fear death, yet they face it. He couldn't understand it, but he couldn't stop admiring it either. Days passed. Zelair barely slept. He watched more disasters, wars, celebrations. Every scene showed the same truth: humans refused to give up. He saw doctors staying during outbreaks when others fled. He saw miners trapped underground, singing to stay calm. He saw a child giving food to a hungry dog. Simple acts. Small things. But together they painted a picture of a species that refused to surrender, no matter what. When Zelair's daily report time came, he hesitated. The Dominion expected data that showed human weakness. But what he saw was something different. He opened his transmission file. The cursor blinked, waiting for his words. He began to type. Report number 47. Observation of species, human. Initial assessment, unstable and emotional. New assessment, strength comes from emotion. He stopped. His claws hovered over the console. If the Dominion saw this report, they would know he was no longer loyal. He deleted the file. Started again. This time he wrote what they wanted to hear, lies about chaos and weakness. He sent it through the secure channel. The message blinked sent. But as he leaned back in his chair, he whispered, Forgive me, humans. I cannot protect you yet, but I will try. That night, while the ship orbited above Earth's night side, Zelair couldn't rest. He opened one of the human news networks again. A live feed showed a burning building. Firefighters climbed ladders, smoke swirling around them. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. A floor collapsed. A firefighter fell, then another rushed in to pull him out. Both disappeared into the flames. Minutes later, they emerged, coughing but alive, dragging two more people behind them. Zelair's hands trembled. No Dominion soldier would do that, he muttered. No one would risk themselves like that for strangers. Something deep inside him shifted. For the first time, he understood what humans called bravery, a power stronger than logic or fear. Suddenly his console beeped. Incoming message, encrypted command signal. Zelair froze. He opened it. The screen glowed red with the Dominion insignia. Agent Zelair, the message read, Your final report has been reviewed. You are ordered to transmit the location of human defense networks. Prepare for the advance fleet. He stared at the message for a long moment. His heart, an organ built for efficiency not emotion, beat faster. If he sent those coordinates, the invasion would begin. Earth would fall within days. Billions would die. He stood in the dark of the cabin, staring at the glowing blue planet below. Humans had no idea he even existed. They would never know who warned them or who betrayed them. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he whispered, Not yet. He turned off the transmitter. He could feel the Dominion's eyes watching him from across the stars. But for the first time in his life he didn't care. He walked to the observation window, hands trembling slightly. You fight for each other, he said softly. Perhaps I should learn from you. The stars outside flickered as the ship moved into Earth's shadow. Somewhere below, on the dark side of the planet, sirens wailed and people ran to help others. The world spun, full of chaos and courage. And in orbit, the alien spy who came to study human weakness began to understand something dangerous. That courage could not be measured. And soon that discovery would make him an enemy of his own empire. And Hook. As Zelair prepared to shut down his systems for the night, a light blinked on his console, an alert from deep space. A Valerian battleship had just entered the solar system. The invasion had already begun.